what's up, New Braunfels? This is Laurie Schrank. As you can see, my partner in crime, David, is not with me. David's job has moved him to a new position, which is much more time-consuming, and so he's unable to do this anymore with me. So this is going to be my first podcast on my own, so be patient with me. I wanted to tell you what this clip is about. This clip is about the Planning Commission back in February 2nd of 2021, when they were looking at zoning the 48 acres on Orion Drive that sits between Goodwin and the railroad tracks in 1102. This project has been passed. Its project is residential, but also multifamily. And I want you to take a listen to this Planning Commission meeting. It was brought to my attention. Someone sent me the clip, and I was like, oh my God, I can't believe that the planning for New Braunfels, before they decide to do zoning changes, does not take a look at traffic and drainage and how it's going to affect the city. So I need you to pay close attention to what they're saying and what is being said by the commission's attorney, and what's also being said by Mr. Looney concerning the ordinances for this stuff in New Braunfels. I hope you enjoy. And like I said, my first time doing this alone, and I appreciate your patience.
And we're here to answer questions.
Mr. Byrd, this is Commissioner Reeves. I just wondered, is there any member of the New Braunfels Planning Commission that has worked with you concerning this development?
Not directly. We've worked with staff throughout the process.
Thank you.
Any questions for the applicant? Being none, this is a public hearing. Anyone that would like to speak on this item may do so at this time by raising your hand.
We have Amy Gussman.
Hi, good evening, gentlemen. You know me. Amy Guzman, 3015 Shell Cove, living in the Oak Creek Estates neighborhood. I would like to know how many multifamily units are proposed for this multifamily piece of the development that would be in a single-family residential area. Can the developer answer that, please?
We don't have specific plans for it yet. There's not imminent plans for development. This is based on market feedback on what the specific uses should be for this site. There's a manufactured housing deal going in kind of across the street, and so we've tried to manage the land planning and the uses and so forth to accommodate around that and kind of make sure that it doesn't have a negative impact. I think that development is going to be fine, but we've had to incorporate that into our plan. We don't have a specific plan for the apartment, the R3H land.
Am I allowed to continue speaking, or?
Yes, you have
we have
a
a very
couple of minutes left.
Okay, thank you. We have a very similar situation, road situation, as the previous case that was up here before. So I know you all know Orion is closed right now, and so to get around,
I'm going to interrupt
no traffic.
you.
It's just
I'm
zoning.
going to interrupt you, ma'am. Traffic is not a discussion of this zoning. Traffic is an action after the zoning to see whether or not they can meet the issues or would have to pay for improvement. So
Okay, I apologize.
Okay, you can move
Now-
on to another topic. Thank you.
I apologize. Just that the multifamily does not fit within the entire neighborhood, which is single family, including the manufactured property. And that's all I have tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next speaker.
At this point, sir, there are no other hands raised.
Okay, we'll close public hearing. Do we have a motion or discussion?
Commissioner Edwards, never mind. We have no more hands raised. Sorry.
Thank you.
Commissioner Gibson, motion to approve with staff recommendations.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Vice Chair Laskowski, second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Can we have a discussion?
Oh, yes, we can.
This Commissioner Reed,
Discussion? Go ahead.
I take very strong objection to the chair deciding what can and can't be discussed concerning a zoning situation, because I feel like that the impact of drainage or the impact of traffic would set the stage to whether this zoning would then be appropriate or not. Just like the open space you see on the revised zoning exhibit is that way because of a drainage situation. What if the developer had put in housing around there and it wouldn't have been appropriate? So I disagree, and maybe we ought to have a conversation about this down the road, but I think you're limiting free expression, and I strongly object.
We'll take that under advisement. Any other
Mr. Chair,
comments?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
this is Commissioner Saunier. I'd like to ask Mr. Onion's point of view on that. And also I'd like to address, I don't know what kind of question that was, Mr. Reeves, regarding to the developer, has any person on the planning commission had dealings with you? I'd like Mr. Onion's opinion on both those.
Mr. Chair, this is Frank Onion, counsel for the commission. With regard to the question, with regard to the traffic and drainage issues, those typically are outside of a zoning matter, because what you're trying to determine for a zoning application, does it fit within the comprehensive plan? Does it fit? Is it a compatible use? Generally, the specifics of the drainage and traffic are taken care of platting. However, it's not the brightest line that one could draw, because if you're putting a battleship in a bathtub, you naturally would have drainage and traffic problems. So we maybe want to discuss that further in the future, but it is correct that when you have zoning issues, you're determining about uses and not the specific TIA traffic issues or floodplain issues or drainage issues generally. With regard to the second question, I don't have any objection to him, Dr. Reeves, asking the developer that question. There's no prohibition of that at all.
Well, thank you for your answer, but I will say I found that rather insulting to the other 8 commissioners.
Can I circle back to the first one, though? There have been times that we've talked about issues where it was obvious that it was a pretty, like you just said, a battleship in a bathtub, where it would have an impact on the traffic, but we've been saying, well, we can't talk about the traffic because that's a separate issue, when it's obvious that common sense says, if we approve this, it's going to have a huge impact on the traffic in that area. So maybe we do need to talk about that in a different time, about how we want to address that.
Yeah, and Mr. Chair, this is Chris Looney.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Planning and Development Services Director. I mean, I agree with planning commissioners that rezoning to certain zoning districts will allow uses that could change traffic and traffic patterns. The issue is that our zoning ordinance does not require developers, applicants, people who are proposing rezonings to submit traffic impact analyses this early in their process. If our ordinance did, then we would have more information and data that we could share with Planning Commission and City Council about potential traffic impact related to all of the uses that would be allowed in that district. But as of right now, our ordinance doesn't require it, so we don't have a way to get that information, at least in a level of detail that would provide Planning Commission enough information to, help you make a better decision, other than just anecdotal information at this stage. perhaps in the future, if there were changes in our ordinance requiring that, we would have a little bit more data, technical data to be able to share.
So let me ask a layman's question then. And I'm being Aggie, so it's going to be kind of simplistic probably is, so that being said, we say, okay, we can't talk about traffic, and we approve a zoning, which is obviously going to cause down the road, potentially cause some big zoning issues, but we approved it. So what's going to be the remedy down the road when it's going to create another Creekside nightmare? And how do we remedy that?
Sure, later, whenever they come in with their next steps in the process, and if a traffic impact analysis is required, and the roadways as they're presently designed can't support the increased traffic for those specific uses, then the developer will be required to mitigate by making a certain amount of improvements that are roughly proportionate to the impact that they're having on those roads.
An example of that, not necessarily in New Braunfels, but there was a project in San Antonio that a group worked on, and they had to improve an off-ramp coming off of Loop 1604 because of the anticipated traffic issue. If you will remember, in our zoning case for the manufactured home community, they had to mandate the improvement of Orion up to their entry, and the subdivision across the street, which also was providing traffic, had mandates to pick up from that point to go out. So that does happen when we get into the master plan side of having to do the improvements to be able to take the traffic, along with any other circumstances, such as the bond issue already in play on Orion on this track.
Right. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, how do we avoid another Creekside mess?
I think we can note, hey, we're concerned about the traffic. And they can say they have a concern about the traffic once. That's noted, and then it's going to go forward as a discussion. If it's something that, like the Plass case, you had the situation where it was the belief that Klein Road was inferior, extremely inferior, to the apartment that you voted the project down. Okay, now whether that was the reason or not, or whether it was a density, that wasn't clearly stated in May, but it may have been an extenuating circumstances in your commission's evaluation.
All right, good enough. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments on this item? All right. All right, so we do have a motion and a second, am I correct?
Yes, you're correct.
May we have roll call, please?
All right. Commissioner Tubb,
Aye.
Vice Chair Laskowski,
Yes.
Commissioner Gibson,
Aye.
Commissioner Reeves,
Aye.
Commissioner Mathis,
Aye.
Commissioner Meyer,
Aye.
Commissioner Nolte,
Aye.
Commissioner Sunier,
Yes.
Chair Edwards.
Aye.
Well, my fellow New Braunflers, I hope you enjoyed this episode of What's Up New Braunfels. Like, subscribe, share with your friends and family. Don't forget to hit the bell. And remember, no S in the middle of New Braunfels.